When we think of production applications, one thing that we don't think about enough is error monitoring. It's an essential part because even if you've tested everything you could possibly do with smoke tests, unit testing, even having users test it through a beta, there are some things that you just can't foresee. So in this video, we're going to show you how you can implement Sentry in a Next.js application so you can monitor errors and performance.
So the first thing we need to do to start our Sentry project is create our Next.js application. So for this, we're going to do npx create next app, and we'll call it Sentry app example. Once this has been completely installed, we then need to install a single package for Sentry. So we can cd into our Sentry app example here and do yarn add @Sentry/Next.js. Once this is done, we need to flip over to our Sentry dashboard and create our new project. So from Google Chrome, I've logged in to my account here. And as you can see, we don't have any projects. So let's create a project here. And we're going to select Next.js. And then down here, we're going to just say, alert me on every issue. Here's what I normally do for production applications. Usually I set it when there is more than X occurrences over a period of time. But for now, we'll just alert on every issue. And then all you have to do is click create project here. If you're concerned about throughput and things like that, you can select this, and also when your transactions are slower than average. But this is just a basic generic version of setting up Sentry, and I'll talk about how it all works behind the scenes. So we're going to click create project here, and now we're ready to go. Now what we need to do is actually run this command right here. This command right here does a lot of things. First, it creates the Sentry client config.js. It also creates a server version. It does a next config.js. If there is one, it will create a separate file which you can merge together. And then finally, it creates the Sentry properties and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. I'm going to go to our terminal. We're going to paste this in and hit enter. What's going to happen is it's going to ask us if we want to install this because it's just a template. So we click yes. Then it's going to log into our account here, and it's going to say waiting for the wizard to connect. Sometimes it doesn't actually change. So as you can see right now, it hasn't changed from wizard that is connected. But if we click here, you'll see that it's already done the application. Sometimes you can try clicking this a second time. Otherwise, I usually just close out and then go back to projects. And you should see that this project is now here. This is your project dashboard. You can do a lot of stuff here. First, you can set up things like number of releases. You can set up how many crash-free sessions, crash-free users. You can create custom alerts for certain things. So if you click this create alert, you can say when this issue happens, email a specific person. So if you've got a team of 3 and someone works solely in APIs, you can have them anytime an API error comes up, email them an issue. Or if a number of errors happen above a certain number, you can get yourself an email. There's a bunch of different things you can do in here. But we need to go back to our application to really look at what's happening. So from here, we can go ahead and open this up. And now we're in Next.js. As you can see, there's something called next config wizard copy.js. And that's because there was already a next config file, and they don't automatically copy or merge these together. You have to do it manually. So the only change is we just need to take this right here. We can copy this and we can drop it right into our module.exports like so. Make sure you delete that. And then we can delete this top one. So delete this. And then rename this to just nextconfig.js. So Sentry by default offers this _error.js file, which is a custom error that essentially just allows you to handle some error messages. And it will let you essentially track those if something happens, say in a serverless function or something else. So just bear that in mind. Obviously, you probably still want a custom 404 and a custom 500 error page, but this also handles error components for things that may happen along the way. We've talked about next config. We've talked about this _error. Let's talk about this client config. So this client config essentially just inits Sentry that you can then use. Along with Sentry server, it's the same thing, but on the server side. On top of that, you have this Sentry project, which essentially tells you what the org is, what the URL is, what the Next.js is, and where the CLI executable lives. So that's everything to do with the project. But how does it actually work? So inside of here, we're going to go ahead and just delete everything out except from the main. And all we're going to do is create a button here. And this button is essentially just going to have an on-click handler. This on-click handler is then going to throw an error. So we can just do throw error. And inside that, we'll have an error message that says hello from the front end. And if we hit save here, and then we close our button out and we say click me. So what's happening here is essentially we're just going to throw an error message. What will happen then is that Sentry will actually handle this for you. So you don't actually have to do any additional work here. If there's an error thrown anywhere in your application, Sentry will handle it, and I'll show you what it looks like in the dashboard. So from here, we can just do yarn dev, localhost 3000, click the button. You'll see unhandled at runtime, error hello from the front end, and this is obviously the error. And if we go here and go to our projects and go to Next.js, we should see there is an issue here. All issues 1 and new issue 1. If we click this and we click on this error message right here, so it shows you exactly what's happening at the time. Now, because it's not deployed, we're going to get this problem processing the event because there is no source code right now. We can fix that later if we so wish. But imagine if this is in deployed mode, it will show you a bunch of things. Then it's going to show you all sorts of user IPs, development, runtime browsers, what it's using, etc. So using Chrome, Mac OS, here's an IP. And then if we scroll down, it will show you the exact exception. So here you can see on this internal webpack on page index.js, on click at line 5631. On top of that, you can actually scroll a bit further down and you get essentially a breadcrumb of exactly what's happening. So here you can see someone was fetching this page. So they went from to this, which is me refreshing the page. It's this transaction ID, brand new. And then it says a user action happened. UI was clicked, body, div, next. So that would be the next page. In the home container, in the main, there was a button. When that button was clicked, an exception happened and it said error hello from the front end. So we've seen examples of the front end, but what about in an API? So inside of our API, we can actually use a Sentry helper here to essentially wrap this request. And if there is an error message, it will get handled. So we can do that by doing an import here, saying with Sentry. That comes from at Sentry/Next.js. All we need to do here is create a handler. So we can say const handler equals an async function. And that async function can be request and response. And we can do some arrows here. And then inside of our, we can do something. So we can just say throw new error, and we'll say this API didn't work. And then we can just do a res status. In fact, we can just copy this. And we'll say res status 200. And we'll leave that as is, and we'll delete this. And then we just need to wrap our handler in the with Sentry. So we just do export default with Sentry, and then we paste the handler in there, just like this. And now what will happen is this will error out, and then we will get a good error message. So we do yarn dev here, and then we can go to localhost 3000. Everything's fine here. And if we do /API/hello, we got this error message here. This API didn't work. It shows us exactly where it threw the error message because we're in development mode. And if we go to our open source project here, go to Next.js, we scroll down, we got all new issues. And I imagine all of these are the API didn't work, including a couple of errors where I misspelt the name have shown up. But we've got this one right here where I requested this twice. If I click on this error, you can see everything about this and where it came from. So we can see it came from this API handler, and we can see everything about cookies, headers, what the device was, etc. And then we can actually see the error message here. So we can go full trace here. And we can look at the trace ID and say 1 transaction, 1 error. It took 1.35 milliseconds. And the trace was from this HTTP GET. And an error occurred in this transaction. Here is the error message. So you can see the exact error message. You can click on that. And you can see everything about your error. When you fixed it, you can click this resolve button. And that will resolve it. But if you then go back here, and we do this one more time, and we go back to issues here, you'll see regressed has 1 now. And that is the API didn't work because I intentionally threw the error message again. So if you've done a code fix, you think, this completely is fixed. That is not true. Then you can open your GitHub issues. And when you deploy this out, every time you do a new release, so let's say you merge a PR and you do a release, this release number will go up. When this release goes up, it actually makes it even better because what happens is if you put the release out and something regressed, it will tell you the exact release that it regressed with. So there you have it, a brief introduction to Sentry. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button that you see on the screen. And of course, until the next one, see ya.